Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamti Nashtaprayeshu Bhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtaki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 14, text number 22 onwards. Tasmad idam jagadashesham asat-swarupam swapnabhamasta-dhishnam purudukha-dukkam tvayeva nitya-sukha-bodha-tanavanante mayat udyadapi yat-siddh ivava bhati. Therefore, this entire universe, which like a dream is by nature unreal, nevertheless appears real. And thus it covers one's consciousness and assails one with repeated miseries. This universe appears real because it is manifested by the potency of illusion emanating from you, whose unlimited transcendental forms are full of eternal happiness and knowledge. As an object of enjoyment or a permanent residence for the conditioned souls, the material universe is certainly illusion, nothing more than a dream. One may give the analogy that the vision of abundant water in a desert is no more than a dream. Although real water exists elsewhere, similarly, the vision of home, happiness, and reality within matter is certainly no better than a foolish dream in which repeated miseries appear. And so this is just a dream in the sense, yes, we are living in this dream, but it's not our real home. Real home is where there are no miseries. Here, this material world is full of miseries. Every time there is something or else going on that we don't like. So this is not a real home. In another sense, however, the universe is real. In his commentary on Vedanta Sutra, Srila Madhvacharya has confirmed this by quoting the following statement from the Vedic Shruti mantra, Satyam hi evedam vishwam asrijata. This universe created by the Lord is real. The perfect authority of Vedas thus certifies this universe to be real. Nevertheless, because our knowledge is stolen by illusion, as indicated here by the words astadhishanam, we cannot properly understand this universe or the Supreme Lord who has created it. As expansion of Lord Krishna, the universe is real and is meant for being engaged in his service. One who accepts the kingdom of God as home, the Lord himself as the object of love, and the material universe as paraphernalia for being engaged in Lord's service, dwells within eternal reality, wherever he may go within the material and spiritual worlds. So it is unreal because if we try to enjoy it, it is real if we use everything in the service of the Lord. It's as good as spiritual world then. But for that, our vision has to be correct. Because our vision is not correct, not proper, our consciousness is not proper, we try to enjoy this universe, control this universe, which in the past nobody has ever been able to. Even present day, nobody can control it. And so in the future also, it's not going to happen. We can control everything in the universe. There's no way. Even Hiranyakashipu, who won over the whole universe, he could not control everything. And he was always in anxiety. Sada samadvegna diyam. His own son told him. So only thing that we can do is whatever is in our possession, use it in Krishna's service. That's all. Ekastvam Atma Purusha Purana Satya Swayam Jyotir Anant Adyaha Nityo Aksharavajasram Muksukho Niranjanaha Purnadvayo Mukta Upadhito Amritaha. You are the one supreme soul, the primeval supreme personality, the absolute truth, self-manifested, endless and beginningless. You are eternal and infallible, perfect and complete, without any rival and free from all material designations. Your happiness can never be obstructed, nor have you any connection with material contamination. Indeed, you are the indestructible nectar of immortality. This is what Brahmaji is praying to Lord. And Lord, as you can see in the background, he's just a little boy. He's still in the little boy form. Srila Sridhar Swami explains how the various terms of this verse demonstrate that the transcendental body of Lord Krishna is free from the characteristics of material bodies. All material bodies go through 6 phases: birth, growth, maturity, reproduction, decline, and destruction. But Lord Krishna does not take material birth, since he is the original reality, a fact clearly indicated here by the word Adya, original. So he is original. He doesn't take birth. Everybody comes from him, but he doesn't come from anybody. That's what the special position of the Lord is. We take our material birth within a particular material atmosphere and material bodies that are amalgamations of various material elements. Since Lord Krishna existed long before the creation of any material atmosphere or element, there is no question of material birth for his transcendental body. So he is always existing as Satchidananda Vigraha. Similarly, the word Purna, meaning full and complete, refutes the concept that Lord Krishna could grow, since he is ever existing in fullness. When one's material body becomes mature, one can no longer enjoy as in youth. But the words Ajasra Sukha, enjoying unobstructed happiness, indicate that Lord Krishna's body never reaches so-called middle age, since it is always full of spiritual youth bliss. So he is always Nitya Kishore in the spiritual world. Nitya, eternally he is Kishore, in the Kishore form. He is an eternally 15, 16-year-old boy. The word Akshara, undiminishing, refutes the possibility that Lord Krishna's body grows old or declines. And the word Amrita, immortal, negates the possibility of death. In other words, Lord Krishna's transcendental body is free from the transformations of material bodies. The Lord does, however, create innumerable worlds and expand himself as innumerable living entities. But the Lord's so-called reproduction is completely spiritual and does not take place at a certain phase of bodily existence. Rather, it constitutes the Lord's eternal proclivity to expand his spiritual bliss and glories. So his body is transcendental. It is not how we go through so many transformations. He doesn't go through that. As the Lord creates states in Shruti, Purvam evaham ihasam, I alone existed in the beginning. Therefore, here the Lord is called Purusha Purana, the primeval enjoyer. This original Purusha expands himself as a super soul and enters every living being. Still, he is ultimately the absolute truth, Krishna, as stated in Gopal Tapani Upanishad. The absolute truth himself is Govinda, who has an eternal form of bliss and knowledge, and who is sitting beneath the shady desired trees of Vrindavan. This absolute truth is beyond material ignorance and beyond even ordinary spiritual knowledge, as stated in the same Upanishad. Thus, in many ways, the supremacy of Lord Krishna has been established in the Vedic literature, and it's here confirmed by Lord Brahma himself. So this is Krishna, and Brahmaji is praying to him. Brahmaji is glorifying him because he understands who Krishna is. Evam vidham tvam sakalatmanam api swatmam atma matya vichakshate gurvar kalabdhop nishat suchukshusha yete taranti bhavan ritam buddhim. Those who have received the clear vision of knowledge from the sun-like spiritual master can see you in this way, as a very soul of all souls, the super soul of everyone's own self. Thus, understanding your original personality, they are able to cross over the ocean of illusory material existence. So, one who gets a clear vision of knowledge from the sun-like spiritual master. So, without the mercy of spiritual master, one cannot see, one cannot understand Krishna. So, one can ask, who is the spiritual master of Brahmaji and how come he got into illusion? Well, it is Krishna himself is spiritual master of Brahmaji. But sometimes everybody can get into illusion, and so did Brahmaji. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, on leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. So all we have to do is to know him in truth through a spiritual master, following his instructions. Atmana vevatma yattaya vijanatam tena jatam nikhilam prapanchitam jnanin bhuyo api cha tat praliyate rajvam her bhog bhava bhavo yatha. A person who mistakes a rope for a snake becomes fearful, but he then gives up his fear upon realizing that the so-called snake does not exist. Similarly, for those who fail to recognize you as a supreme soul of all souls, the expansive illusory material existence arises, but knowledge of you at once causes it to subside. Those submerged in illusion see material existence as infinite, just as one who is submerged in water sees only water all around him. For example, material scientists and philosophers submerged deep within the ocean of material illusion imagine that material nature extends infinitely in all directions. In fact, the material creation is a finite ocean of ignorance in which foolish living entities such as material scientists are unceremoniously dumped by the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So those who are in illusion, they think everything is illusion and it's so difficult to get out. But to be trapped in a world in which all things are born and die is certainly a fearful experience. Anyone trapped in a dark place naturally becomes fearful, since material life is always covered by the darkness of ignorance. Every conditioned soul is fearful. Material nature is not ultimate reality, and thus analysis of matter can never provide answers to ultimate questions. This dark snake-like existence called material life immediately disappears as soon as one opens his eyes to the bright light of Krishna consciousness. So this darkness is there because we want it to be in that. As soon as we open our eyes, that torchlight of knowledge comes from the spiritual master. And then we can start seeing how everything is illusion, but there are ways to get out of it. It's just like when we go watch a movie in a theater, we used to. So in the theater, the movie that goes on the screen, they have to make everything dark. Otherwise, we will not enjoy the movie. Because whatever is on the screen, it's nothing but illusion. It's just a man-made movie. Director, producer, writer, script writer, whatever, whoever all thought of the movie plot, and then the actresses, they act. But we have to be kept in the dark to be able to enjoy. Otherwise, if the lights are on, everybody will see, oh, it's just some pictures going on fast on the screen. That's all it is. So they have to keep us in ignorance for us to be illusioned. So in the same thing in the material world, it's completely illusion. Nothing is permanent, nothing is true in this world. The only thing that is true is, otherwise, if we are performing bhakti, fine, great, everything good. Otherwise, everything is temporary, everything keeps on changing, everything keeps on moving. One thing after another, one thing. We think I'm the enjoyer, or I'm the controller, or I'm the proprietor of this thing or that. And very soon this whole scenario changes. Some people are my friends, some people are my enemy. I think so this way, and then tomorrow it could be completely reversed. It's all our conception. Nothing is permanent. Even our bodies are not permanent. Our status, not permanent. It keeps on changing. We want to hold on to it because ultimately soul is permanent, soul is eternal. Soul wants to hold on to everything because soul doesn't like changes. But nothing is permanent, not in this material world. And we get afraid of changes, but the body keeps on changing, situations keep on changing. And after a while, we leave the body, we die. Means when we die, that is an abrupt change. In our life, when we go through changes in our body, but those changes are very gradual, we don't realize. By the time of death, that's an abrupt change. And that's when we get more scared. But change is the quality of this material world. Everything is temporary. Everything. So that's why a guru like Prabhupada, he comes with this knowledge and he opens our darkened eyes with this knowledge, eyes that are closed. Then we can see the reality. And then we realize why I am here, why I'm suffering here, for what? Working so hard, people are working so hard, day and night, cheating and hardworking, honest people, and then the crooks, every kind of people. Ultimately, what's the goal? To make money so that I can live comfortably. Doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen, no matter how much money I have. Some misery, big, small, something is always going on in everybody's life. Recently, I was reading about the chairman of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, who's an Indian guy. His son, 26-year-old son, he just died last week or week before, something like that. And that boy was born with cerebral palsy. That's a disease. I think he doesn't have control on his brain and his bodily organs. Such a big person, chairman of Microsoft, CEO of Microsoft. He couldn't do anything. His son was in hospital and then he just died. So some problems are there with everybody. And I'm not rejoicing at his problems, but this is a fact of life. We all have to live with it. The point is, the soul is made of Satchidananda, spiritual body is made of Satchidananda, Ananda, bliss. Why we have to go through these miseries living in this material world? Nobody's asking us to live here. We can get out. Just we have to prepare ourselves, purify ourselves. That's all. While we are living here, while we are in this movie, we are watching this movie, we are in complete ignorance and we think this is it. All we have to do, all somebody has to do. But spiritual master has to just turn on the lights and show us the reality. That's all. Agyan Sangya Bhavabandha Moksho Do Nam Nanyusta Krita Ritakya Bhava Ajasra Chityatmani Kevale Pare Vichare Mane Tarana Vivahani. The conception of material bondage and conception of liberation are both manifestations of ignorance. Being outside the scope of true knowledge, they cease to exist when one correctly understands that the pure spirit soul is distinct from matter and always fully conscious. At that time, bondage and liberation no longer have any significance, just as day and night have no significance from the perspective of sun. Material bondage is illusion because the living entity actually has no real relationship with the material. Because of false ego, the conditioned soul identifies himself with matter. Therefore, so-called liberation is simply the giving up of an illusion rather than release from actual bondage. So giving up of illusion. Yet even if we think that the suffering of material illusion is real and that liberation is just a meaningful release from suffering, the mere absence of material existence is still insignificant compared to the achievement of factual spiritual life, which is a positive, eternal reality opposed to the negative illusion of material life. Ultimately, Krishna consciousness of pure love of Godhead is the only significant, meaningful and permanent status for every living entity. So liberation. So bondage, we know, bondage is ignorance and then we are caught up here in the material world. Liberation from this material world means the moksha that people generally talk about, which is going into Brahm Jyoti. So Brahm Jyoti, the miseries of material world are not there, but the happiness, the bliss of service with Krishna, serving Krishna, being with Krishna's devotees, associates is not there. So that is the real bliss we are looking for. So that's a so-called liberation and the bondage. It has no significance actually. Real significance is service of Krishna, loving devotional service. Since the darkness of night is caused by the absence of the sun, one would not appreciate night itself, within the sun itself. Nor would one experience individual days separated by nights. Similarly, within the pure living entity, there is no material darkness and thus no experience of liberation from such darkness. When the conditioned soul comes to this platform of pure consciousness, it becomes fit to associate with the Supreme Pure, the personality of Godhead Himself, in the Lord's own abode. So that's where we have to be. And this is what Brahmaji is praying, and Brahmaji is confirming actually everything. Tvamatmanam paramatva paramatmanam evacha atma punar bahir mrigya aho agya janata gyata. Just see the foolishness of those ignorant persons who consider you to be some separated manifestation of illusion and who consider the self, which is actually you, to be something else, the material body. Such fools conclude that the Supreme Soul is to be searched for somewhere outside your Supreme Personality. Lord Brahma is amazed at the gross ignorance of conditioned souls who consider Lord Krishna's supreme spiritual body to be material. Ignorant of the spiritual form of the Lord, such persons also consider their own material bodies to be the self. And therefore they conclude that spiritual reality is to be found somewhere beyond the supreme personality of Lord Krishna. Sometimes such fools consider Lord Krishna to be one of many individual souls who together constitute a single impersonal spiritual entity. Unfortunately, such speculators are not inclined to hear from the Lord himself or from the Lord's authorized representatives, such as Lord Brahma. Because they whimsically speculate on the nature of the Supreme, the ultimate result is confusion and ignorance, which they euphemistically or very nicely described as the mystery of life. So there's so much of ignorance. But first they think Lord Krishna's spiritual body is material, which is not, never will be. And then sometimes Mayavadis, what Mayavadis say, oh, Krishna has expanded himself into so many individual forms, so his original form is gone, it's lost. But that doesn't happen either. And that's what the shlokas, such fools conclude that the Supreme Soul is to be searched for somewhere outside your Supreme Personality. He's not different from his body. It's all one spiritual body made of Sat, Chit and Ananda. There is no difference between soul and body of Krishna. It's one. It's the same. And similarly, our spiritual body, our soul, it's the same. But because we are in this material world, with the material consciousness, we've been given this material body to deal with. But this body also, we have to spiritualize it, purify our consciousness, and then we can become eligible to live in the spiritual world. But speculators or so-called jnanis, they give so much world jugglery and give their twisted philosophies to make us more confused, much more confused. This is the simple philosophy as Prabhupada has presented in his books. So anyway, I'll stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments. Okay, so you all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada.